Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carpenter, your host, and with me today I have that special Rays analyst, the man who digs deep, who has the history and knowledge of what's going on with the Rays, not just here in Tampa, but across all of the minor leagues teams they have across that as well. We're speaking, of course, about Mr. Mat Germain. How you doing, Matt?
Excellent. How about yourself?
Boy, I tell you, I don't know if I could ever get any better than this. It's been fantastic. Had a great weather down here in Tampa the last few days. But you never know what's going to come with the weather. Sometimes even when you're out on a nice day like this and you think of, maybe just go out and give me the football a good kick. And the whole thing comes to mind to me, Matt, about Charlie Brown and Lucy.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you have anticipation of something. There's that ball, and you're ready to go after it. You know it's there, and then it's pulled right out underneath you.
Oh man, I bet you there's a lot of Cincinnati fans that feel the same way about the game yesterday.
Oh gosh, that was a disaster. Or not, depending on what you're pulling for, I guess. I was feeling that actually, though. This morning, I was watching the tube down here. Well, I'll tell you what, I kind of lay a little groundwork here, folks. One of the things I've been waiting for a long time is knowing where the heck my Tampa Bay Rays are going to play. That's it. Where are they going to play? I mean, you've seen this, man. You've been on touch with this.
I've been pretty heavy on this file for about 6 years now. So
6 years, and it's insane. I know what politicians do, and I understand truths are told that are reworked, and new truths are told on top of that. But the thing of it is, today I was wondering. Well, I looked at the most recent plans for Tampa, for the Tampa Bay Rays Stadium. And lo and behold, I saw that a plan had been put out around Ybor City, but where there had been a stadium in those plans before, they're not there now. And then just across the bay in St. Pete, the mayor over there, Ken Welch, he had a thing or two to say, and he had a little press conference out there, stood up there on the city steps, and it had to be a little embarrassing because he's standing there in the shade, and he's got about 100 people out there who are sitting in folding chairs in the sun. He said, I won't be long. And he said, I'd have other friends here as well, but my daughter had all 4 of her wisdom teeth getting pulled. And I thought, I bet that's how the audience felt too, waiting for something to be told.
Yeah, they could have announced it in an indoor environment, but I get it. They wanted to have the sun out and everybody kind of in the same kind of environment. I feel like they want to sell as a base to attract people to the area. So it makes sense.
Yeah. So the cameras shoot to the people out there in the audience, and they're all taking their programs and they're waving them and, getting some air for themselves. And finally he rolls out and says, we've had like all these RFPs going out as far as these special things that we want to do right down here in St. Pete. And we've decided to go with the ones with the Rays. Yay. Exuberance, fireworks. Well, there weren't actually fireworks, but there should have been. I thought, okay. He said that. Now what's next? And it wasn't, but I guess a couple hours later, Brian Auld from the front office of the Rays, he's sitting down there at a press conference, and he's sharing words about, we're real excited about this too.
They're saying all the right things to set up the stage. So essentially what they've done is now they have a credible option in St. Petersburg, but they haven't laid out yet how the financing would work or anything like that. But from what Ken Welch said, there's been, a lot of details shared to the point where you would think that would be something that they digested before they actually awarded this the way they have. So the big thing they have now is leverage for all the sites in Tampa, and they can really just say or throw down the gauntlet and say, you know what, we have an option here, beat it. And so if Tampa wants to have the Rays at all, which I don't believe the counselors anyway, Tampa might want it. The people there might want it. But the counselors or the people in charge of the money are really not interested in it, that I feel anyway, at all, because they're Yankee fans, Red Sox fans. They're not fans of the sport at all. They don't want to get taken out of office because they're spending taxpayer money. Whatever the reason is, there is no warmth at all on the Tampa side of things for the Rays. So I think Stu Sternberg can read the card. So he's going where the warmth is, which is in St. Petersburg. And now he has, an option on the same side as where his Rowdies are playing. So he can kind of say, you know what, this is worst case scenario. And now we can try to beat it. And so they've got a year about, or maybe you can lay it down to about 10 or 11 months before they make, the announcement saying councils actually approve this, that, and the other thing that they have to do. And maybe they can push that timeline up a bit if they really want to get the project going and there's nothing coming out of Tampa at all. But I find it'd be really good to have a resolution mid 23, maybe by August-ish, so that then you can get shovels in the ground and start getting to work, because it's a long project to get to do this kind of thing. And I'd be curious to find out all the details, like how young and exuberant is this area going to be? Is it going to rival the Atlanta one? Is it going to rival the one in around Petco? Or is it just going to be artsy, kind of thing that kind of keeps it similar to what it is now? Because if that's the case, then the Rays are making a serious mistake. But having said that, if they can draw in 90 to 100,000 people, you're getting the same population base as what you have in Cleveland, Cincinnati. You're getting towards, pretty close to what Baltimore has, because St. Petersburg's a really fast growing population. And if you build up the restaurants, the bar scene, etc., to be attractive, then they can do with what they don't have now, which is get fans there before the game, keep fans there after the game. So you make it an event area altogether. And I think that's what the vision should be. Whether or not that is or will be, who knows?
Yeah, like you said, time will tell, but that's ambitious. And I think anybody who's really has an eye on the future, maybe, they'll be able to kick that daggone ball. Maybe Lucy won't be pulling it away one more time, because it needs to be something done. Because like I said, I think over just even the last few years, I thought, oh, great, we're going to have a new stadium. Oh, we're going to be halfway with Montreal. Ooh, oh, well, it's going to be over in Tampa. It's going to be over by Ybor. Oh, that's going to be great. Oh, it's not. Oh, now it's going to be over in St. Pete. But Brian Auld says, about the money, we'll talk about that later. That's private. I mean, I guess maybe I shouldn't worry about it so much.
Here's my question to you, though. Let's say that the Rays do set up where they are, and it does increase the population to somewhere between 350 to 400,000, and they're able to draw on average, 20,000 to 22,000 fans per game. Let's just say they get there. What does that do to the value of the Rays?
Wow. Well, it probably would, in one sense, from a player's perspective, you'd like to play where there's a few more people in the stadium. So I would say it does something there. The money that they're getting on revenue for TV, I don't know, that thing will probably stay the same. Merchandising.
That's the money. We know the TV money has increased significantly over the last 5 years, and that'll continue to do so as Tampa as a whole, because that's the TV market includes Tampa as a whole, etc. So that's where the big money is for them, that and the gambling now and everything else. But really, the TV money is why they are staying in St. Pete. If they didn't have the Tampa market when it comes to TV, which is a top 10 market, they would not be staying there. So that's why I'm wondering, like, if they are able to make the attendance palatable, not exactly booming yet, right? Which it could get to eventually. So you build it for, let's say, 35 to 38,000, the stadium, but you don't fill it initially as much. Well, maybe initially the first few years is always excitement, but then afterwards it fades a little bit, and then it gains, and it all of a sudden becomes again 35, 38, and you're able to build that kind of momentum. Because St. Petersburg as a whole, like, if you picture it with a lot of population, let's say they get to 600, 700,000 down the road in terms of population, with the beach, with the soccer stadium, with the area, it's a beautiful area. So there's no reason to not want to live there. And it can become that kind of little bit of a jewel on top of having a really top end TV market. So the potential is there. They just have to convince people to move there.
I don't think that'll be a problem. I really don't. I mean, it's beautiful down there in St. Pete, and there have been more and more people coming to Florida each year. It's going to be crazy. Yeah. Plus, I've seen with a lot of markets where they're building a new stadium, they're paying a lot of attention to making development, in the acres around that, whether or not they're renting out to businesses, apartment complexes, et cetera. There's a lot going on there. And I think St. Pete has that in mind with what they're proposing. So we'll see.
There's another angle to that as well, though. Like when you look at St. Pete, and let's say they always say like people move to Florida from outside of state, right? Like they move south basically. So with MLB now switching the schedule to 13 games in division, that means that you're going to see a lot more of the teams from all around the United States in your own stadium. So let's say you have 81 games to fill in your stadium, and those fans are going to get to see not the same teams over and over again, which do draw well. Don't get me wrong. In most cases, like I don't know if there's an extra boost for Baltimore and Toronto, but there is for Boston and New York, and you still get a fair amount of games against them. But now you're going to get to see the Angels. You're going to get to see the Rockies. So like if you're a Rockies fan and you're in Florida, you're going to make, that a priority. So they're going to get a lot more of those kinds of opponents to face now that MLB's gone to a different kind of format when it comes to who you're facing and when. So every second year, you're going to get to see your team no matter what. And so that's going to help the attendance boost a little bit as well, which I think that's a underrated thing when it comes to competition and getting fans in the seats, because there's so many times that I've talked to people and that when I was in Baltimore, they were saying, oh, well, we'll never see Mike Trout here. Yada, yada, yada. I was like, yeah, I feel the same way. I'll never get to see him because it's on the East Coast and they're on West, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's one of those things that I think St. Pete, because of that as a whole, I'm not discounting it. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying there's value there to monitor closely. And if they're willing and able to cover a good portion of the stadium costs, then, that's money in Stu's pocket. And like I said, the value will go up substantially once they get the deal closed, a new stadium, yada, yada, yada. And he can move on from that at some point and cash in. But is there more value on the Tampa side? Probably 4 times more value.
Oh, yeah.
So I get it. Like it's not optimal, but it's better than nothing, I guess is the best way to put it.
Good point. And I'll point out too that I'll put some links at the bottom of the description here to where you can see some of the news conferences that went out today. And that's maybe give a little more depth if you want to see that. I don't know if I'd invest the full hour that I did going through it, but you're welcome to, folks. We'll put it there. You did mention something though that really caught my eye, and that is talking about this new schedule, man. I mean, what, you're going to see every team this year. You're going to see all 29 of the other teams, right?
Exactly. Well, and not is it every year? There's like,
I thought it was every year. I know you were saying that.
You see your opponents are going to change a lot. There's some teams you won't see in that year because you're going there. So you'll see every team, but you'll face every team, but you're going to go there at one year and then they're going to come to your place the next.
Okay.
I think that does have value because you're going to, I don't know, like there's something cool about, let's say, I don't know, the Mariners, right? The Mariners come to town. You don't get to see them because you're usually in bed when they get on TV or whatever, and you don't get to see Julio Rodriguez. Well, you're going to make that extra trip to go see him when he comes to St. Petersburg because he's a phenom and he's somebody that you want to see, just like Mike Trout, right? So I think MLB's got it right. I put this exact model out about 5 years ago when I wrote for D-Rays Bay, and I said, this is what they should be doing. And they're doing the same thing in the minors that I mentioned in that same article. I said that they should never play baseball on Mondays. They should have that as a media day. And then you start the series on Tuesday and you go all the way through Sunday. Those are your baseball days. So you have a 6-day rotation, which would keep your pitchers healthier. And you can go through almost the same way as they do for college, where you have a pitcher that's on Fridays, you have a pitcher that's on Saturdays, whatever. Like it's one of those things that I think has some value, not only in keeping players healthy. And if you want to keep it 5 days, you can, but it also has value in terms of Mondays are horrible attendance.
Oh yeah.
People don't watch the games on TV. They're busy doing other things. So stop trying to force feed them something they don't want. It just doesn't make any sense.
I have to agree with you wholeheartedly there. The one thing, that I do like about this new schedule, and I'm glad you were a proponent for it for some time ago, is that even if I don't get to see all the other 29 teams here locally, I'll be able to see them play my team, whether it be on television or at the stadium. And there's something to be said for that. I mean, when you want to see Shohei Ohtani against your team, it may be,
Right.
and you certainly maybe you'd like to see him against your opponent in the same division. So, uh, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing that this year. It's another little thing about is who you're going to be facing is upcoming. We have the World Baseball Classic.
Yes.
And
should be interesting.
Think about it. You could see Ohtani and Trout facing one another, maybe.
Yep. And I think there's some stacked teams. Like for the first time, I think baseball's kind of taking it seriously. And I sort of wonder if the popularity rising of the World Cup of soccer in the US and in Canada has kind of, brought a spotlight on the WBC and what the potential is there overall. Because I don't want to say there's jealousy or anything like that, but if you're looking at you're comparing the two, right? They're in different stratospheres. And they probably always will be. But is there the potential to bring it to the point where the WBC becomes a very, very, very fruitful endeavor for those players? So let's say, they have 3 or 4 more of these things, and soccer players make quite a bit of money from going over there and sponsorships and everything else. Like, could baseball players get the same thing out of the WBC? Well, there's a good chance that they will, as long as it keeps growing and those players actually take part, the best ones, right? So the sad part of it all is, are you really going to see the best of those players at that time of year? Probably not. And there's probably no way to make that happen, to be quite honest, because of the way things work with baseball. As long as we keep having this many games in the season, that's just not feasible at all. But it's still a lot of fun. I enjoyed the last one. I thought the crowds were great, especially in Miami. That place was rocking. There's going to be a lot of good highlights to watch, and yeah, that's before the season even starts.
Yeah.
So we'll be revved up for it for sure.
Yeah, our buddy Lou Schiff, who does baseball and the law on Twitter, and great author. He lives down in Miami, and he's got those tickets. He's been talking about that for over a year, so I'm sure he's going to enjoy that as well. But I mean, it is. It's exciting. You think about it. You're going to see Japan, probably facing up the U.S., and that would be again Trout and Ohtani. Those are exciting moments. But another thing that came from that too, Matt, was there was a baseball pitcher I was talking with the other day. He says, "Well, Mark, what happens since this is happening in March? There's going to be a lot of young players that are going to be brought up to the bigs that wouldn't be there because the key players from the U.S. are going to be playing on that team. So maybe some of the younger players will actually be able to play at least at spring training."
Yeah, that's a good point. Like of great things from all the at bats and all the innings pitch that you can get, but anytime that you can get the eyeballs of your the manager of the team that you're playing for, or even other managers and teams that are playing against you, the more times you can show them what you can do, the better. So I definitely get that angle.
Let's swing back to the Rays here for a bit. And I know you've done a lot of homework on this. We've seen some good news here the past week with these contract extensions with Fairbanks, with Jeffrey Springs and Yandy Diaz. Wow.
Yep. Those are great. They're just so much fun to watch. Like, and I'm hopeful there's a few more coming. Jason Adams, one I'd really like them to dive in on and get signed, maybe 3 or 4 year deal, maybe even steal a free agent year away, because if you're Jason Adam, you're sitting there now, you watched all these guys get paid and they're getting paid a little bit up front more than they would have gotten in arbitration. And you're stuck having to wait. He's pre-arb still, or sorry, he's ARB1 and he's got 4 years of arbitration. So he's even, got to wait longer to get the free agency. And by then he'll be quite old. I think he'll be 35.
Wow.
Is it 35 or 34? I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me, but he's a bit of an older guy that's blossoming now, right? So I think he'd be going into his mid-30s anyway during his free agency. So how much would he get paid at that point? I don't know. So the Rays kind of have him in a good spot, and I mean, with those guys that you mentioned that they locked up, like Yandy Diaz he's a rare breed. He's a lot like Luis Arias, the Marlins gave up quite a bit to get him. But he's a guy that when you can wear down opposing pitchers for a long time at the top of the lineup, all good things happen in your lineup. Like you're giving yourself an opportunity to capitalize behind them. So Yandy Diaz being extended was something that I started drumming up middle last year because you just got to see him reach another level. And I don't think that's going to go away, especially if he gets more DH time now that they didn't go out on the free agent market and add somebody for that. The thing that I think it might do with Diaz's case is force Harold Ramirez out, because you've got the guys like Curtis Mead and Kyle Manzardo coming. And if you're going to want to have space for them and space for Yandy, then, you can't have that many first basemen / third basemen around.
Yeah. But you were talking about even last year, how he's coming up, how he's gotten better and better. If you look at his, let's see, the strikeouts for last year, bring up the numbers here real quick, Mark. If you compare his strikeouts, I remember, to his walks, it wasn't surprising to see, let's see, at 78 strikeouts and 66 walks. No, that's projection for 2023. I know he did better than that. Yeah. He had 78 walks and 60 strikeouts. That's just amazing.
Mm-hmm. And you have to believe, like, if they're bringing in maybe next year, even that electronic strike zone monitoring, however they do it, whether it's challenges, this, that, or the other thing, Yandy Diaz knows the strike zone better than the umpires half the time. So if he's going to force the pitchers in that zone, he's going to do something with it. Now, obviously, a lot of people would rather him hit a lot more home runs or hit for more power, but I'm all fine with him getting on base and driving pitchers nuts by fouling off, 8-9 pitches when he goes up there. He's frustrating to pitch to because he knows his zone so well, and he has great reach, and he barely ever swings and misses. So that's a pitcher's nightmare. If you can have that and a more mature Wander Franco behind him, then by the time they get to the third guy in the lineup, the guy might have thrown 16 pitches, 17, 18, like it starts to add up to the point where now they can do some damage against them with the core of the lineup. So I think they're in a good spot with that.
So what do you think that the lineup will look like? Yandy and then Franco, who do you see after that?
Well, I think I'm hoping that at some point Isaac Paredes will be that guy. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's this year right away. For now, you're still, you have Brandon Lau. I think we'll get those opportunities. There's a lot of guesswork in terms of how they're going to go in terms of lefty, righty. I've been a proponent of trying to get guys that can hit against both, so you have more stability in the lineup, and guys are getting more consistent at bats. And I think Josh Lowe is going to have a really good year. I could see him start the year maybe in the 6th spot and then moving up over time if he does do as well as I'm hoping. I don't think he'll be the 3 guy, but can he be in the number 5 spot and have Isaac Paredes ahead of him? And possibly, because then at least you're doing that whole righty. So you can have Brandon Lau 3rd, Isaac Paredes 4th, and then Josh Lowe 6th. I'd be okay with that. And then you still have great hitters behind those guys. So the Rays have more potential in the lineup, I think, than people think they do. And I get it, because last year was so frustrating to watch. And Randy Arozarena is going to be in there as well. And you're going to have, Randy Arozarena is probably your best bet in turn to be 3rd or 4th, and Brandon Lau the other, however they decide to stack them to start. But I think over time, as Isaac Paredes' power and his strike zone awareness, shines, I think he could end up being in there for sure, because he has the most power, I think, of any Rays hitter right now. He has like the 40 home run potential eventually down the road.
Yeah, I wanted to also take a step into something you were talking about this morning on Twitter, and that was starting pitchers and innings pitched. Could you give us kind of a rundown of what you were saying?
Sure. So it's been a while now. Like the Rays, when Eric Neander first took over, they knew they had to get creative because they just didn't have the depth of pitching and the right setup in terms of timing of guys that, had enough wear and tear on them to actually push them to a level that would make them a traditional starting pitching group. So they went to the opener, they did all the things they did, and over time you got to see them go from pretty much almost 900 innings for their starters down to, the low 700s to the mid 700s. So that's been the norm basically since Eric Neander took over. And this year is the first year that I can anticipate them pushing back above at the 800 level. And that has a significant impact, because if you can take one of those relievers, like the Rays depended a lot last year on guys like Ralph Garza and other relievers that might not have been optimal, that might have had more question marks. If you can take one of those question marks away and make it a more certain guaranteed performance, and then put your guys that are more apt to be, good in high leverage situations or medium leverage, then you're going to have way more success. And that's what the Houston Astros did last year. They basically ran with a 6-man rotation so they could go deeper into games. They shortened the pen, and boom, they were, a beast last year. So I think the Rays this year could do that same model, even with Yanni Chirinos or Taj Bradley. And if you add up all the innings, Tyler Glasnow, if he can manage 165, even if you don't overload Zach Eflin and you just leave him at about 135, you cut down, his innings for the starting of the season. Maybe you keep him at 4 innings or 5 innings to start, and you manage that all the way through. I think the Rays will be in a really strong spot by the end of the season. It's all about setting up for the playoffs, right? So if they're able to do that, the way that I had it formatted, nobody was throwing more than 180 innings, and they were getting 800 innings from those, from the 5 starter group. That's without including Taj Bradley or Yanni Chirinos. So I really think they'll exceed 800 innings from their starters this year. And I hope, I cross my fingers and knock on wood, that the starters stay healthy so that we can see what that looks like by the end of the year.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I know I was listening actually to one of the episodes you and I did earlier, because there was one nugget I was pretty sure I thought I knew something about it, and you knew a little bit more, not surprisingly. And that was, that was in regard to the number of pitchers that the Rays had take the mound last year. I think you said it has called it. I think it was said 57. I thought it was like 35 or something. And it's like, gee, my knees. And that just knocked me out. But the teams, they have to be prepared. They have to have some depth, and you just have to adapt. And the Rays, they adapted pretty well with all the injuries that they had last year. I mean, and we're not unique in injuries. I'm not saying that we are, but I thought that Cash and company did a pretty good job with all they had, and bringing in people too, like Peralta. He's a guy. He's much more than just what he did. He's a clubhouse guy. And I don't know who I would point to right now on the Rays roster and say, that's the clubhouse guy. We don't have a Willie Adames right now.
Oddly enough, I would think, because they dealt away Choi and a couple of other big personalities. You think about the guys that are leaving this team now, like KK and Choi, and they're guys that people gravitated to, media gravitated to. So the interesting thing will be whether or not it improves the clubhouse issue to not have those, hyper focuses to the point where you're too easygoing, or whether or not it actually, places the focus on their other personalities that we haven't seen as much. I think Wander Franco will take a lot of that spotlight, assuming he's healthy. And I think Yandy Diaz becomes that guy that kind of, takes the helm in terms of being that personality. I don't think you can count on Christian Bethancourt and even Brendan Lau and some of those other guys to be the hyper go-to personalities. They're kind of fun. They're not sulky, sit in the corner kind of guys by any means. I think the Rays will also benefit from having some youth coming through. Vidal Brujan is a pretty lively guy and animated on the majority of the time. They have a big Randy Arozarena. It's a huge personality, so he's going to continue doing what he is. And Manny Margot is the big papa right on the bench, so they'll be fine. I know Harold Ramirez took on that role a little bit last year, and people are really enjoying his personality. Even fans, like I mentioned, the fact that I really believe that they'll deal him this offseason because of the fit just not really being there. And they have such a strong right-handed group coming up from the minors that it doesn't make any sense to to pay him what he's going to be asking for, and you can probably get a pretty decent prospect or two from him for him, or an outfielder, left-handed bat that you need, somebody that can actually play a position. But Harold Ramirez really endeared himself to the entire league, and I think that's why he has such high value, because of the personality, the perseverance, the effort he put in, and how much all the other players enjoyed playing with him, and it was evident whenever you were watching the Rays.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of Harold. I see his value, and I wonder whether we were going to have him the rest of this upcoming season.
Mm-hmm.
And no doubt, Brujan had some energy, and Yandy's always got that kind of quiet smile. You know, you can see a certain positivity exuding from him all the time. And as long as he and Randy aren't having arguments, I think everything will be okay.
I think the best attribute for Yandy Diaz is that he can make fun of himself and be fine with that. And so people kind of gravitate to him because of that.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't take himself too seriously. And that's it has that whole Big Poppy kind of feel to it, right? I think that's how I see Yandy Diaz finishing his career with the Rays, assuming, he can do really well and the guy stays in shape. We're not going to kid around. If he can continue doing that, there's no reason he can't stick around a little bit longer even than what he signed. But he can be that, Big Poppy Ortiz kind of personality for the Rays, that kind of, says, I've got your back. And if you're going to clear the benches, he's going to be in there. And that's not a bad thing to have on your side.
No, he's quite the man. I mean, if I saw that man coming across from the other dugout, I would be running away. Well, I tell you, coming up now with the Rays, they are actually going to do something here that they haven't done in a couple of years, and that's have a fan fest. That's coming up here on the 18th, man.
Are you going?
I'm going to go. I've been missing. I actually was already sending emails to the Rays front office a couple of weeks ago. Hey, we're going to have it. We're going to have it, because I don't think we've had it the last couple of years. And when a couple of years ago, my wife and I had a great time there and had a photo taken with Snell and Glasnow, and felt like a little kid.
Oh, dude, eh? He's a big dude. Oh, man.
Oh, you should have seen it. My wife and I were, we put our arms around him, and just, you couldn't get us all in the same frame. Stand back further. Okay, don't cut our heads off completely. But yeah, that's always a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that. And another thing about, because I hope that the Trop, but because of the terrible hurricane, they're going to be doing most of their spring training games at the Trop. So that's,
I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think you'll draw some people that are curious about it from the Tampa side. So I see that as a huge opportunity for them to actually, improve the number of people that are going to watch. Knowing that no games are going to be canceled out is going to be something people enjoy. So, and it's going to be a little bit cooler if it is hot during that time, whatever. Or if there's thunderstorms, it'll give them something to do. So it's one of those things that I think can benefit them, and maybe that'll become, a more normalized thing later on. But it is sad that, the people that are used to going to that area year to year won't get the chance to do that. There's a lot of guys this year that I'm curious to watch in spring training. So it's one of those things where, like, the Rays brought in a crazy amount of pitchers that are just, they each have an intriguing tool, and I know they like to emphasize that. So there's going to be a lot of characters at that fan fest that you're going to see, and that you're going to be like, who are you? What's this guy? Who's this guy? And so that's a good thing.
So who should we be looking out for? Some of those faces we don't recognize immediately.
Like Kevin Kelly. They acquired him from the Rockies in after the Rule 5, because they selected him 5th overall. I believe that they did that like so quickly that it tells me they see something in him. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the call up before Colby White does. Colby White's another guy that you should be looking for. He's the reliever that went up 4 levels, and we were really hyped last year. He looked great in spring training, and then he ended up having Tommy John. Ooh. So that was one of the first injuries that we faced last year. And we're like, oh, and then it kept happening and happening and happening. So Colby White is one of those guys, and another one you might not recognize right away is Zach Eflin, just because he's new. There's a lot of good opportunities. Curtis Mead, you might not recognize right away. Kyle Manzardo. a lot of pitchers. Trevor Bridgen, yada yada yada. He might be doing the WBC thing, so I don't know if he'd be there, but yeah, it'll be an interesting fan fest for sure, and hopefully they amp it up every year a little bit. Like, so I know those things can become stale if you go every year. Yeah, if you catch any wind of any rumors or anything special or different that you notice from it, you'll have to share the next time we talk.
Absolutely, brother. I tell you what, man. Yeah, thank you. You're always good about having some real depth to what's going on with the team, what's going on with prospects. Maybe we can talk about prospects on another show, because that's a whole other thing. It's looking good this year. It's like I said, there's people that we're going to discover more about this year. The most recent extensions. One of my favorites is Pete Fairbanks. There's a lot of great players, and as all of you as fans of the Rays, I'm sure you have yours. Go ahead and let Matt and I know. You can find us on Twitter. You can find you, Matt. What is your handle there on Twitter?
It's at MAT_GERMAIN_.
All righty. And I am at the Baseball Biz. That's THE, not THE. But the Baseball Biz on Twitter as well. We'll try to keep you guys up to date. If you want to know what's going on with the Rays, Matt certainly has his thumb on the pulse of it. So that's where I go every day. Matt, thank you again, buddy, for joining us here. I love always having you here on Baseball Biz.
Not a problem. I appreciate it every time.
Okay. We want to thank you again for joining us here today on Baseball Biz on Deck. Love it when you guys share your thoughts with us. You can always reach me, Mark, at the Baseball Biz on Twitter. And go ahead, if you get an opportunity, like us, love us, follow us. We love to hear from you. Special thanks to X-Take RUX for the music Rocking Forward